Good morning, everyone. I'm Seth Dobrin. I am the Global Chief AI Officer here at IBM, and I want to welcome you to the user group for Watson and for AI at IBM. Really appreciate everyone's participation, and I'm going to talk to you today about trust, but perhaps in trust in AI, but perhaps from a different perspective than you may expect. So as you all know, we're in the midst of an AI evolution or revolution, but people are still suspicious and fearful of AI. And this is a time for us to look at fully unleashing the power of AI to really reinvent our future. But to do that, we need to look beyond the advancements in research and technology. What we really need is for people to trust the algorithms that impact their lives. And actually, let me take a step back and start from here. The biological circuits of neurons help to explain a popular machine learning technique at the heart of deep learning, artificial neural networks. And yes, today, as IBM's Global Chief AI Officer, I'm here to talk to you about machine learning, algorithms, and AI, but not from the perspective you might expect. Trust is the real driver for AI adoption. And trust is critical to begin to approach this technology from a human perspective by actually taking a step back. And the perspective changes when you look at the broader picture, doesn't it? This image is an analogy from a field where I started my career, human genetics, specifically neurogenetics. And I bet now you may be wondering how a human geneticist became the first ever chief AI officer at one of the biggest companies in the realm of AI. And in fact, that's precisely what most people ask me. But believe it or not, there's a lot in common between being a human geneticist and leading data and AI transformations in the enterprise, even if it may not seem like it on the surface. For instance, in the late 1990s, during the early time of my early academic career in genetics, was the time of the founding of what we today know as big data, which isn't really a term I like, but one that everyone knows. And if you think about it, the origins of big data come from hard sciences such as astrophysics and genetics. Additionally, the application of tools that are so popular today for solving math problems in AI, like R and Python, arose during this time. And throughout my entire career, from being a human geneticist to a plant geneticist, and academics and startups to multinational corporations, has been rooted in pushing the boundaries on the combination of advanced automation methodologies at scale, leveraging both data and math, all with the aim of creating better, faster, and cheaper solutions that could solve real human problems and could be trusted by people across the organization. In fact, trust is critical when it comes to scaling AI. Trustworthy AI and AI ethics are among the most discussed topics today, and there are many frameworks, guidelines, assessments, and regulations that are being provided. And I know what companies have to deal with. It's pretty complex. And if we're honest with ourselves, at best, it's a mess. But people tend to forget that ensuring the design and development of trustworthy AI that are fully integrated with a company's business processes requires much more than technologies to mitigate bias or address regulations. The matter is very complex. Now, operationalizing trustworthy AI at scale starts from growing and maintaining an open and diverse culture that fosters inclusiveness, a culture where AI is human-centered. It's the culture in an organization that allows it to set a proper data and AI governance that ensures the development of AI solutions that are grounded in ethical principles. And the path towards trustworthy AI is long. It requires a human-centered approach rooted in the value of diversity to use AI to solve human problems to generate real, tangible value. Now, I realize with time that almost all the initiative that I led from the beginning of my career have laid the foundation for the creation of this human-centered culture I'm talking about. A culture that is essential for putting trust at the core of AI technologies and generating value for organizations. And through this lens of my journey in data and AI that I'm going to talk to you about today, how to set the basis, to instill trustworthy AI technologies in an enterprise. Now, to be honest, making the transition from hard sciences like genetics to heading data and AI transformations for large companies is not so much of a leap as it may sound. It's actually taking a big step in a totally different direction that's the real challenge. And this is precisely where the perceived leap comes in. If you think about what's at the heart of data science and AI in enterprises, it's basically applying the scientific method and using math and computer science to solve business problems at scale with the goal of creating net new value. Ultimately, with a slight step to the left and the right, realize that the wrong slides are shown again. Ultimately, with a slight step to the side here and there, I've brought the application of the scientific method in a field very far away from genetics by completely changing industries when I joined IBM. And this is how innovation happens, by putting ourselves at the intersection of different fields and making an effort to connect the dots along the way to draw a bigger picture. In my case, that picture was cross-functional data-driven solutions that help companies to reinvent their business models. And that's why one of the very first initiatives I worked on when I joined IBM was the creation of a new team, the Data Science and AI Elite Team. I designed this team as a pool of experts with skills in machine learning, deep learning, data engineering, data visualization, optimization research, and data journalism, all to help IBM and our customers successfully execute, operationalize, and scale AI in the enterprise. Through my journey, I've realized how companies invest heavily in software, hardware, and time hiring top talents. And yet, despite all this effort and money, many of these companies get back little to no value. And this primarily happens because they spend all these resources on too much experimentation and projects with no clear business purpose set up front, which as a result, don't align with the strategic initiatives of the organization. Now, with the Data Science and AI Elite Team, I wanted to turn data science from being a scam into a source of real value by showing enterprises how they need to consider turning their data science programs from research endeavors into an integral part of their business process. The experiment of the Data Science and AI Elite Team resulted in a huge business success. The team has acquired more than 110 customer references and has completed more than 260 customer engagements. The way the team operates has profoundly changed, even in IBM. The mindset of how to approach data science and AI and how to use it to generate new business value. A year after the creation of the Data Science and AI Elite Team, we started another team to help accelerate AI-driven value creation. This team of domain-specific chief technology officers who also have deep expertise in the given industry. These CTOs help to tie AI to business outcomes in order to accelerate the generation of value for their industry through AI. Although the actual strength and immense success of this team truly dwell in its diversity. I want you to think of a menu. Do you eat everything on it? Absolutely not. You pick and choose, right? Now, this is yet another analogy that comes from my wife. An analogy between a menu and a job description. Long before joining IBM, while working in a previous company, I was trying to find simply one good data scientist to add to my staff. One, not more than 100 as it was with the Data Science Elite Team. So not only was I having trouble finding qualified candidates, but I realized that there was zero diversity. And tired of my frustration and complaints, my wife helped me realize that the job description I had written contained more than 24 qualifications. To frame it in her words, it was too much of a wish list. And she was right. Most of the criteria were not necessarily skills required for success. In fact, she suggested reframing the job description to a short menu of desired attributes. And that's what I want. And there's what I want, and then there's what I need. For instance, I don't need someone with Python, R, Julia, Scala, Java, and JavaScript skills. I need someone with R or Python plus one other language. I don't need someone with an understanding of every database known to humankind. I need someone with expertise in three of the following: relational databases, columnar databases, key value stores, graph databases, etc. And I shouldn't care about the number of years of experience. What I really care about is the level of demonstrated mastery. Well, after doing that, I suddenly had twice the number of new qualified candidates, including women, people of color, and underrepresented groups. There's an entire body of research out there explaining why diversity increased so much with this approach. And when it came time to begin to assemble the data science and AI elite team, I adopted the same strategy to ensure it was highly diverse. With some of my colleagues, our HR partners, and our talent acquisition partner, we reevaluated the entire hiring cycle, from writing the job description to making the candidates of the offer. The main rule that we established was we were not allowed to conduct interviews until we had a diverse pool of qualified candidates, an approach we drew confidence from many studies and research that exists in the field. Following these practices, we minimized bias during the hiring process, and we created a diverse team of highly technical and highly talented individuals from 21 different nationalities, speaking 27 different languages, of which 43% were women. Now, I didn't do this because I've done this because it was and still is the right thing to do, but because diverse teams drive better business outcomes, and this is all proven by top academic and real-world research. In fact, there's ample evidence that diversity is good for business. A recent McKinsey report found that companies ranking in the top quartile for racial and ethnic diversity were 35% more likely to have financial returns above their respective national industry medians. But diversity isn't just about hiring diverse talents. It's also about establishing forward-thinking policies and processes to nurture and preserve diversity within an organization. And it's with this belief I've driven multiple initiatives inside IBM to support different communities and grow talent in data science. For instance, together with several female leaders, we co-founded the Women's Diversity Network, which we named GROW, guidance, resource, and outreach for women in IBM, all with the aim of advocating for women. In order to retain talent in data science, we started the IBM Profession Board, of which now I'm the exec sponsor. And through this board, we have a clear career path for data science through a skills-based assessment and qualification program that exists inside IBM, as well as outside IBM via the Open Group. And also, as part of the first data science and AI elite team, we started the first ever data science apprenticeship program to give people with zero background in this discipline the opportunity to learn high demand skills and develop a career in tech. Along with these initiatives, we also changed the old-fashioned way of mentoring diverse communities, because mentoring is important, but it must be backed by sponsorship and advocacy. Diversity and inclusiveness spur innovation. Innovation generates concrete business results. A diverse and inclusive team is more than male, female, black, brown, white, or differences in sexual preferences. It's also differences in background, socioeconomical, cultural, language, skills, training, cognitive processes. In fact, multidisciplinary was one of the facets of diversity and inclusiveness when we established the data science and AI elite team. Now, prior to joining IBM, while I was leading a data and AI portion of our digital transformation, I remember taking part in a project about implementing a mobile experience to interact with farmers in India through an app. To everyone on the team, it sounded like a fantastic idea. Everyone was really excited about the project until after a design thinking workshop, we discovered that actually the farmers, our end users, could only use the SMS service on their phone, meaning an app was worthless. If we had pursued what we thought was a great idea without thinking of the user first, we would have wasted time, resources, and money. Approaching AI from a human perspective is fundamental. We only provide real tangible value to organizations when we create solutions that solve real human problems. AI is only a means to an end. The ultimate goal is to help and augment humans. In fact, the choice I made to equip the team of data scientists we established, the data science elite team, with data journalists and data designers was a radical change to the traditional data science practices applied to business problems by rooting them in a human-centered approach. Through my journey from scientist to business leader, I've learned several lessons. One of them is that bringing a diverse cross-section of wild ducks together with purpose creates innovation. And innovation indeed has been the objective of my entire career. In the effort to bridge the gap between business, AI, and human needs. The focus on humans brought into the data science and AI elite team engagements led to the adoption of design thinking workshops in data science, which were even more radically innovative by adapting them to data and AI to better serve both the end users and the data scientists. In addition, the human approach revealed the importance of adequately communicating AI's outcome to the end user, which prompted the adoption of data storytelling to transform algorithms into actionable knowledge and concrete business results. Ultimately, the attention to the user uncovered the need to have a well-defined data and AI strategy to craft an overarching story that helps envision a new AI scenario and explain how this scenario may play out. This experience of the data science elite team made me realize that what I had accomplished over my career has always been directed towards the creation of a human-centered approach for data and AI business practice. In fact, to lead a portion of my previous company's digital transformation, I had created a framework called the Decision Portfolio to identify the company's strategic initiatives in data and AI based on users' needs, and assess those initiatives by assigning them a business value. Yet once I joined IBM in my previous mission as IBM's Chief Data Office, while leading the digital transformation for the cloud and cognitive software organization, I realized the framework that I had created couldn't really help me as it didn't scale. I needed a way to fasten the time to gather user requirements on the data they needed to run the business efficiently. Also, I needed a way to make sure to develop solutions that would have real impact. Therefore, the team started adopting the design thinking practice and reinventing them through the lens of the decision portfolio. We use design thinking to identify business problems from a human perspective through a data-driven approach. Now, this was groundbreaking. We use it to identify real user problems, uncover real crucial business questions they have, and use those questions to extract the information they need. We then turn the information into data sources that are used to design and develop solutions to solve real user problems. By approaching digital transformation from the human's needs and unknowns hidden in the business strategy, we provided the business a tool to carefully design a framework. Through an IBM-wide effort across finance, sales, design, development, and product teams, we're able to create a management system that is today IBM's single source of truth for business. And it's adopted by nearly every single executive. This method completely changed the way data is used for business by teams and accelerated IBM's digital transformation. By re-engineering the decision portfolio framework through the lens of a human-centered approach using data-centric design, we sparked an innovative collaboration between IBM Design and our team. The outcome of this work is what is today called IBM Enterprise Design Thinking for Data and AI. IBM Design Thinking for Data and AI is a human-centered methodology that illuminates how to employ data and AI to build an AI strategy, as well as an execution plan for a trusted AI solution. By bridging the gap between strategy and execution, this framework enables teams to design and build solutions that provide concrete business value to their organizations while solving human-centric problems. By putting up front who will be using the data or AI, how they will be using it, what they will be using it for, and why they even need it in the first place. With this framework, which we divide into a strategy session and a set of technical sessions, teams transfer business intents into concrete actions. In addition, by the use of specific AI ethics and AI explainability activities, this methodology enables the design of an AI strategy that puts trust at the core of every solution that is ultimately operationalized by the company's businesses. In fact, this is one of my missions as IBM's first ever Chief AI Officer, helping companies to design an AI strategy that aligns with their business needs and puts trust at the core. Once companies achieve a mature digital transformation, it's time to focus on strategy to industrialize the data and analytics to enable AI to reinvent the core of the modern enterprise. Trust is vital to this process. But we started this journey from right here, from this image, about the 3 pillars of trustworthy AI. But as you've probably gathered at this point, trustworthy AI is the result of different integrated processes and technologies crossing the cultural fabric of an organization. The level of maturity achieved in the AI realm with the operationalization of AI models has prompted the need to trust AI's outcome. And this is possible by creating a data and AI governance framework through which monitoring the entire AI lifecycle to ensure models are compliant with ethical principles. For us at IBM, these principles are transparency, meaning AI is easily inspected, explainability, because people are entitled to understand how an AI arrived at a conclusion, fairness, because AI should always help people make fairer choices, and robustness. AI has to be robust enough to handle exceptional conditions and effectively minimize security risks. And finally, AI must be privacy preserving because AI solutions must preserve the privacy and security of user data. These 5 principles guide the development of trusted and responsible business outcomes by driving more value for companies, making them more profitable, more efficient, and more secure. In fact, companies cannot generate business value through AI unless they trust the outcomes of their AI systems. Think about the recommendations we get or information we provide to our customers by employing AI. If AI is not trustworthy, the link between business strategy and AI strategy inevitably breaks. Because of the urgent need for companies to define what trustworthy AI represents in their organization and integrate the knowledge into their actual business operations, we started an IBM-wide effort around creating a trustworthy AI set of solutions. It's through these solutions that we help customers deliver trustworthy AI systems and put AI ethics into practice through an execution model that focuses on 4 different areas, reflecting the different needs of organizations today. These areas encompass a mix of IBM tools, technologies, as well as expertise of our service organizations that help with building AI governance frameworks by building them from scratch with the conditions to help develop trustworthy AI systems. Looking at the monitoring of the full AI lifecycle, we partner with customers to plan, build, deploy, and manage new AI solutions while ensuring the trustworthiness of AI. And the ability to assess, mitigate, and audit risk, meaning that we offer guidance and tools to help customers assess, audit, mitigate risk in existing AI solutions. And ultimately, we also help with education and guidance through providing best practices for building trustworthy AI solutions through education and guidance for data scientists, developers, and decision makers, and also by offering standard courses and certifications. Now, this was quite a journey, but it doesn't end with this talk. Actually, I hope this is only the beginning of a new conversation. There is still a lot to do to make AI responsible and fair, and that's why it's critical that experts in this domain make sure to focus their work on changing the narrative of AI by putting a genuine effort into creating trustworthy solutions that can truly empower human beings and help us reimagine a better and fairer future. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Does anybody have any questions for Seth? If you do, you can put them in the chat. Maybe I can unmute you since we have some time left. I am not seeing anybody with questions, so you must have answered somebody wants to know if this is the topic of the exam. I'm assuming they mean for certification for Informix 1410. If that's the case, then I don't believe this is part of the exam.
No.
Anybody else with any questions? Okay, nice to know, but thank you. Oh, how is quantum computing about AI?
So today, quantum computing is not yet about AI, but in the midterm future, so think 3 to 5 years out, we will start to look at how we can apply AI, quantum, to solving AI problems at scale. So we're starting to do some research in this area, but we're not quite to the point where we understand exactly even what AI problems are suited for quantum, let alone how we'll be able to execute them, at scale. And the first step is kind of hybrid quantum, traditional compute interactions, which we've gotten to. But we'll see over the course of the next 3 years what that really looks like.
Another question, are you using Informix database as a backend heavily for AI projects?
Yeah, so when we look at the back end of our AI platforms, they're typically based on object stores, but there's always, it really depends on the problem and the data, ultimately how that data will get engineered and what the database, so what the data at rest looks like for a given data pipeline. So the answer is yes and.
Sure, our people like to hear that. Any other questions for Seth? Gotta thank you for a nice presentation. Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll let Seth get back to his busy day and keep moving forward with the conference today. Thanks everybody for your attendance.
Thank you everyone for the participation. Really appreciate your engagement with IBM and your support, as well as your advocacy. So really appreciate it, and hope you have a great rest of the session.